Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. So for this video, we're going to be talking about a very high precision Swiss quartz watch, and that is this guy in front of me. This is the Longines VHP, or Very High Precision Conquest. Now I have the blue dial version here, but you can actually pick this up in a couple of different color options, and this watch comes in with a very comfortable 41 millimeter case diameter here. Now if I flip the watch to the side, you can see the case profile is very nice. These lugs turn down and hug your wrist, and the lug to lug dimension, so the wingspan between my thumbs right here, is 48 millimeters. Case height is a very nice and even 12 millimeters. That's to the bottom of the screw down case back with the Longines crest there, to the top of this flat sapphire crystal. But I'm not sure if Longines actually puts any anti-reflective treatment on the crystal. You can see directly in studio lights you do get a fair bit of reflection, but the dial itself is actually quite dynamic, so let's quickly talk about that right now. So I want to mention something that's quite subtle. If you look at it at different angles, this dial, you can actually see, has concentric circles that propagate outward from the center where the hand stack is all the way to the end. And then you have some very nice applied markers on the dial. Notably, the 12 and 6 o'clock are silver Arabic numerals, while the other hour markers are just simple batons, but they're nicely polished and they have lume in the center where the batons are, as well as the polished hand stack also has some very nice lume. So reading this watch in low light situations is fairly straightforward. And with no light, Longines evenly applies some Swiss superluminova to the markers and the handset. And I will throw up a low light shot right now, just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Now, some other nice features of this dial is that the Longines logo just below the 12 is also done in applique, and it's highly polished. And then near the 3 o'clock position, you have a nicely framed and cut out date aperture, and the date is nicely printed there in white. You do have some nice red accents on the dial with the VHP above the 6 o'clock logo there printed in red. You got the red tip to the needle style seconds hand, and you also have red hash marks in between the applied hour markers. Lastly, the dial also has a very nice chaptering where you have a 0 to 60 minute track there, and you can actually see that the seconds hand hits each one of those hash marks perfectly. So there's no misalignment with this high accuracy quartz movement in terms of the seconds hand just hitting all of the markers on the minute track. And in addition, this quartz movement is accurate to within 5 seconds per year, which puts even some of the luxury like Japanese brands like Grand Seiko or the Citizen from the Chronomaster series to shame, when factoring in the price point. Now I do want to quickly hold up my Grand Seiko SBGN 003 high accuracy quartz here. This is Grand Seiko's quartz GMT movement, the 9F86, and it's accurate to within plus 10 seconds per year, although I'm getting about the same tolerances. I've owned this watch for over a year and it's only picked up about plus 5 seconds. And both of these watches are actually kind of cool in the way you can actually set the time. Both of them have the option that you can independently adjust your local hour hand without hacking the movement, and therefore you can maintain your accuracy. Now with Longines, the way you actually manipulate this quartz movement is you pull out the crown to the first position. This crown is not screwed down, by the way. It's only got 50 meters of water resistance. But once it's popped out, if you do a quick swipe, you can actually independently move that hour hand, and you can see the seconds did not stop, whatever. But if you give it some slower swipes, you can see that I'm now adjusting the minute hand, and the seconds hand actually stopped at the 12 o'clock position there. But when you're done setting the time, you can just push it back in, and it will start back up again, no problem. Now, other features of this quartz movement is that it's highly anti-magnetic and shock resistant. The seconds hand will actually stop if it detects high magnetic fields, or if you were to say drop the watch, and then it'll reset after those environmental insults have passed on. It also has a low battery indicator, and there's also what's known as like a sleep or power extending mode, where if you pull the crown all the way out to the second position, all of the hands will line up at the 12 o'clock position, and there's a circuit that will actually maintain the current time, but those hands won't move, and you can extend the about 5-year battery life to a little bit longer. And finally, this is a perpetual calendar too, so this quartz movement is extremely accurate. You can quickly set the time, and it's good for if you travel a lot as well. And it is a perpetual calendar, so you can set it and forget it. Now, in terms of case finishes, you have some very nice longitudinal brushing on the sides of the case here. You have the Longines logo in high polish on the crown. The fixed bezel itself is also done in high polish. And then you have some more like radial brushing on the tops of the lugs here. So the finishing is quite good, especially given the price point of this watch, which has an MSRP of about $1,000 US. But if you look on the gray market or slightly used, you can likely get a pretty good discount. Let's quickly talk about the bracelet, and I want to mention I like the lug opening here. It's a nice even 20 millimeters, and I say that because a lot of the aviation pieces from Longines, like the Spirit or maybe I think the Big Eye, has an odd 21 millimeter lug opening, but this one gives you a host of aftermarket strap or bracelet options. But the bracelet itself is actually pretty good. You can see it's a 3-link style bracelet, nice rounded profile on the tops, high polish on the sides, and then to size the links, these just seem like friction pins to push it out. If you get to the clasp, you do have the Longines stamped on there, and it's a butterfly deployment, so you can actually just push the button and both of these will deploy. Doesn't really have any micro adjustment though on this butterfly clasp, and to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of butterfly clasp. I much prefer a standard fold over. But that said, the construction on this clasp is milled out quite well, and it does feel very secure once you get it on the wrist. I just wanted to quickly show you guys the case back, because you do have the Longines wings and hourglass in the center there, nicely engraved, might I add. And there are solid end links to this bracelet, and you can see that there's some other information on the case back as well. So here's a quick wrist shot of how the Longines very high precision sits on my 19 centimeter circumference wrist. And even though I'm not a huge fan of this butterfly clasp, it is quite low in profile and actually maintains the same feel of the bracelet all the way around. So for long-term wear, it is quite comfortable. And I do like how the lugs just kind of curve down just to conform to your wrist. So there's no real hot spots or anything. You can move this watch around quite freely, and it seems firmly planted. So in terms of subtle improvements that I think they could make, for one, I do wish that they made the sapphire crystal a little less reflective. Increasing the legibility of this dynamic dial with those concentric circles, I think, would be a really nice update in the future. Maybe put some extra AR coating on the under and top side. And the crown is non-screw down, so you only get 50 meters of water resistance, which I would like to see it bumped up to 100 at least, and maybe include a screw down crown. By contrast, their mechanical Conquest line has a staggering 300 meters of water resistance, but of course it's not a quartz movement, and the threads and the crown itself are a lot stronger on those mechanical watches. And then lastly, I do wish that they upgraded the clasp a little, just providing some more micro adjustment, and maybe put out a clasp that's more of a standard fold over instead of a butterfly. But that really comes down to personal preference. But guys, at the end of the day, I do think that this is a very strong value proposition if you want to move into the upper echelon of what quartz movements can afford you. If you're looking for a watch that you can just set and forget, is going to be extremely accurate, and still has a fair bit of heritage behind it, then I do suggest that you check out the Longines very high precision Conquest models when you get the chance. Now, if you guys enjoy this content, please consider liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel. It helps out a ton. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video.